This is the Samsung Galaxy A22. This phone is the LTE version of the Samsung Galaxy A22 5G, although it's actually closer in features to the Galaxy A32. Still, all three phones have very similar prices, so is there something that makes the A22 stand out over its siblings? I'm Angie for GSM Arena, and this is our review of the Samsung Galaxy A22. The Galaxy A22 has looks that are consistent with the rest of Samsung's design language. Like in other Galaxy A series phones, you'll find rounded edges and a square camera bump on the back. On the front, you'll find bezels and a notch that are perfectly reasonable for a budget device. The A22 comes in mint or violet, and in person, these colors really pop. In general, the phone has quite a few curves, but even so, it's not slippery and it feels secure in the hand. This phone is almost entirely made of plastic, and while it's less premium than other materials, it's also less likely to dent or shatter, and it's much lighter than other materials. In fact, at 186 grams, it's very light for a phone of this size with such a huge battery. The only thing that we don't love about the sturdy plastic back is that it's a fingerprint magnet. Speaking of fingerprints, on the right there is a side-mounted fingerprint reader and a power button combo, and we found it to be speedy and accurate. Above it, you'll find the conveniently positioned volume rocker, which feels a bit stiff and mushy. On the left-hand side, the phone has an expandable card slot just in case the 64 or 128 gigabytes of base storage aren't enough. What the A22 doesn't have is a proper light sensor or proper proximity sensor. This means it uses the front camera for light detection, and while decent, it's far from perfect. Occasionally, it was slow to switch to what was needed. When it did kick in though, the phone got up to 597 nits of max brightness, which is plenty for good sunlight legibility. Other than that, the 6.4-inch Super AMOLED panel has great overall performance. It has two color modes, vivid and natural, and it has very good color accuracy. The 720p resolution meant that its pixel density was a bit low though. The panel supports a 90 Hz refresh rate, and you get to choose either the high refresh rate or the standard 60 Hz as options. There is no automatic refresh rate switching, so you might want to toggle down to 60 Hz when you're watching movies. While the A22 doesn't have HDR support, it does have the highest possible Widevine L1 DRM for high-resolution streaming from Netflix and other streaming services. The phone has a 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom, and it supports FM radio. Next to it, there is a single bottom-firing speaker, and it got below average loudness on our test, unlike the Galaxy A32. The quality didn't wow us either. I'd say that its strength lies in other departments, namely battery life. It got 121 hours of endurance on our test. Honestly, it's unsurprisingly great thanks to the huge 5000 mAh power pack and the power-efficient chipset. Charging isn't as impressive. The A22 comes with a 15-watt charger in the box that supports Quick Charge 2.0. The phone got a 23% charge in half an hour and needed 2 hours and 20 minutes for a full charge. The Galaxy A22 comes with a MediaTek Helio G80 chipset and either 4 or 6 gigs of RAM. The Helio G80 provides a smooth experience with minimal stutters and slowdowns with day-to-day use. However, if you want the best performance on a tight budget and are a fan of mobile gaming, there are much better options out there. The A22 comes with Android 11 and One UI 3.1 Core on top. Why the core in the name? While the A22 is packed with many of the options that its more premium siblings have, there are some feature cuts here and there. Like on the regular One UI 3.1, the notification shade now covers the entire screen. It also supports Android 11's refined multimedia controls, and you'll find that active audio playback apps are in a stack right below the quick toggles. You can take advantage of the notification history feature for when you dismiss a notification too quickly. It's off by default though, so you'll need to go into settings to turn it on. The UI has Android 11's much improved permissions handling, and you'll get a new prompt for permissions every single time that an app requests it. One of the coolest features that the A22 shares with other Galaxy phones is Samsung's Music Share. It allows you to play music through Bluetooth accessories connected to a friend's Samsung phone. Other than that, the A22 has excellent theme support and a myriad of navigation options. You can even customize the One UI dialer app and set up a background image or video for when people call you. The Galaxy A22 has a quad camera setup. It has a 48 megapixel quad Bayer main cam, an 8 megapixel ultrawide, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. This camera setup is more similar to what the A32 has rather than the A22 5G, but it lacks the A32's higher resolution main camera. During the day, the main camera captures 12 megapixel photos by default. Colors look nice and natural, and we saw a decent amount of resolved detail. Dynamic range is decent too. However, shots came out too soft and the A22 often missed focus. The exposure was also hit or miss. There is no telephoto here or other hardware zoom, so if you take 2x zoom shots, they'll be from the main snapper. If you can get the autofocus to cooperate, then you'll get photos that are good enough for social media. The dedicated portrait mode works surprisingly well and produces competent shots. Subject detection could be better though, and it was tripped up by busier backgrounds and stray hairs. If you're patient, you can get good portraits of non-human subjects too. The ultrawide camera is decent but not spectacular. It offers plenty of detail for what it is, and the colors are vibrant too. Unlike the main camera, it has a fixed focus and it produces sharp stills. Perhaps it's just the contrast that's on the heavy side. The 2 megapixel macro camera can get the job done, but its fixed focus is a little further away than we'd like and its focus plane is narrow. In low light, the main camera is unimpressive but decent for a budget device. There's enough detail, controlled noise, and dynamic range is okay. The biggest gripe that we have with it is the same as during the day. The autofocus is unreliable and the A22 would frequently miss focus outright. There is a night mode, and even though its effects are subtle, it restores highlights a bit better, suppresses noise, and produces sharper shots overall. The ultrawide camera is okay in low light too. We've seen much worse nighttime shots from 8 megapixel ultrawides. The exposure is not too dark and dynamic range is in fact okay for the class. Night mode is also available on the ultrawide camera and it has a rather subtle effect. It does remove the noise, but the exposure is often darker. The Galaxy A22 has a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Shots look decent, the focus plane is wide, and resolve detail is adequate. Colors look decent under moderate lighting conditions too. The A22's video capture capabilities are limited to 1080p at 30 fps. Footage from the main camera is decent, but the dynamic range is far from ideal. And overall, the footage is mushy. The ultrawide can also capture full HD videos. But again, the output is no better than what you'd get from a simple security camera. The main camera has OIS, and you can use additional electronic image stabilization on both the main and ultrawide snappers. It smooths out smaller shakes, but it doesn't work amazingly on either camera. The Galaxy A22 is a solid offering for a budget device. It has a great UI, an AMOLED panel with a 90Hz refresh rate, and it has great battery endurance. Is that enough for it to stand out over the Galaxy A32 and the A22 5G though? Not really. It doesn't have 5G, but even if 5G is not important to you, the 4G only Galaxy A32 offers even better features at the same price. Samsung really is their own worst enemy in this case. And while the A22 is not a bad phone, it's a little tough to recommend, even within Samsung's own lineup. Thank you for watching everyone, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.